yourself. Hi, I'm Abby, and tell me what you're trying to do. Um, what kind of strategy are you working on?
Okay. I'm working on a strategy to facilitate the development of a historic sports stadium.
Okay. Um, we'll say this and see what the system comes back with. And the idea here is just to have a free-flowing conversation.
Yeah.
Do you want me to read it for you, or you want to glance at it and then ask questions?
No,
Ali, before you go, do you want to show him the thinking part so he can?
I can read it. Yeah.
I've deactivated that.
Okay, no problem.
It'll take me time to reactivate.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
No, that's fine, because I looked at the link you'd sent me previously.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I understand how that. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. So now, reading this, I probably need to phrase the statement slightly differently, actually, because this is I want to redevelop a historic stadium which is going to cater for high performance sport.
Okay. Okay. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah. So it's catering for high performance sport, and it's going to seek its finance, or seek financing based on its unique community perspective, strength, or dynamic. Yeah, that's good, actually, where it talks about social impacts or revenue models directly involve community participation, shared spaces, etc. Yeah, that's all good. Yeah, and the high performance elements will complement rather than compete with those community goals. So it's a high performance center with community access. That's hits a nail on the head.
Okay. So you agree?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I see that. I think that I suppose the unique pull of the stadium is going to be the ethnicity dynamic of the area that it serves. Stadium serves, and the challenge is.
Tell me if something I'm typing doesn't make sense, or you want me to change the wording.
Yeah, the ethnicity dynamic of the community community the stadium serves, yes, is a unique angle, because that has presented problems for policymakers, for public sector policymakers in the past and currently. It's actually both an ethnicity and religious dynamic, because it's both the religion and ethnicity.
Did I capture it, or do I need to change anything?
No, I think that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. It's thinking. Okay.
Yeah. No. I think that's as it's phrased it, is very clever.
Yep.
Because it's funders are hesitant. So one of the obstacles that has been faced by seeking funding for this in the past, or not even seeking funding, just entering into a discussion, is people say, Bradford, no, that's not for me.
Yes, I see. Yeah.
And so it's hit that head on early.
But while Ali's typing, from what I got from that is that you're presenting investors who would not normally invest there with a value proposition where they can make a decision based on an investment decision. Like, would this be value, and would I turn a profit in terms of how it's phrased? It's not coming across as like a charity thing or anything like that.
No,
Yeah.
that's it. So this is
this it could take a lot. Like, the system doesn't, you can write a whole paragraph,
Yeah.
like a ton of stuff in there. We tested it that way too. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Or actually attach a file where you can describe if there is a marketing collateral that describes the project, or even a project business plan or anything like that. You can
Yeah.
attach that and let the system analyze it for you. But
Yeah.
does this capture what you were intending to say, Abby?
Yeah. Let's see. So one of the obstacles for me, communities. Okay, so I suppose really a higher than average percentage of the community is from a Pakistani background, because whilst it's a higher percentage, it's still lower than the I suppose the indigenous white occupants.
Yeah.
It's just on a national perspective, it is a very high percentage by comparison.
Okay.
The key thing here, Abby, is this system engaging? Does it make you think of things that normally are hard to think of? And are you seeing it developing new idea, new approaches, perspectives in your head?
Yeah. That's the framing. It's a core problem. Okay. This is speaking to me in governmental language. Yeah.
You can give it feedback, including, no, this is governmental language. I'd rather do the following framing.
No. It is capturing it very,
Oh, okay.
very well. Because it actually,
Okay, good.
no, trying to do here, which the system is identifying, is trying to find another angle for institutional investment to say,
Yes.
we are looking at the social dividend that comes from this, but also there is an economic purity and dynamic to it. So this makes sense commercially, and then when we add that social dividend onto it, that gives us it. I suppose it helps us to create another narrative and story for ourselves.
Yeah.
The way I look at, I suppose, investment coming from Saudi or the MENA region is they don't need to do this at all. They can if it's about making money, they can make money elsewhere. If it's about profile, they can get profile by buying a higher profile club. But what this does is this delivers a unique style of community investment built on great economic foundations. So you're impacting a community through investment and ownership, but at the same time you have a different narrative that comes out of it, which is about, I suppose, bridging community divide.
And I think it's also about what it's mentioning here about soft diplomacy.
soft
That's one of
diplomacy.
the
That's
things that these emerging Middle East and MENA powers are doing, is they're trying to acquire soft power
yeah,
through their economic and financial muscle. And what a better way of doing that, of earning some of the hearts and minds of people who they have, like you said, political and religious affinity. And they're not doing it in the Middle East, but they're doing it in the UK.
yeah,
And that's significant in terms of not gaining them that soft power with those communities, but with the political echelons as well.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And Ali, have you, as you've just expressed that, that is right on the mark. So that's, I suppose, really the end, as part of that end interpretation or end presentation to the investment authorities in Saudi or wherever, is saying, well, that's the narrative you're looking for. You say it comes under that issue of soft diplomacy, but what you're doing is you're delivering something in an area that nobody would expect you to do it. You're
Yep.
doing it knowing that it still ticks all of your investment boxes and principles, but at the same time it delivers a different type of message. And so and in a way, is that what is the value of symbolism? And following that thread, I think that on that, where the economic security comes from, is that you have anchor users.
Yes.
So this is not a speculative stadium
Yes.
you're building and hoping that people will come to use. You have
Yes.
anchor users. You then also, because any evaluation of the north of England will show that the stadia there are not as technologically advanced as they are in the south. So the Spurs Stadium, which is Tottenham Hotspur's home ground, is a very technologically advanced stadium. It's where the NFL teams play their games when they come to
Yep.
the UK.
Yep.
However, it's a soccer stadium, not a rugby stadium. So rugby is an oval ball. They're natural cousins with the NFL.
Yep.
This stadium built here is a big enough facility to house rugby, football, American football, as well as indoor cricket. Now, the indoor cricket element of it, again, serves the uniqueness of the demographic around the area, because the South Asian community is cricket mad.
You're right. But one thing I just noticed here is that what's happening, and Abby, you correct me if I'm wrong, what's happening is there's a whole bunch of ideas flying out. Ideas are now coming from everywhere. Now imagine if you had this, you're not only doing this with yourself, you're doing this with your whole team, Abby. So
Yeah.
replace myself, Ali, and Hatim with other project members on your team. And this is a team process. So you guys will be sitting here and come up with ideas, and then somebody will be the one dedicated to type in. But the same things that's happening would be with you doing it with the team.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
your
And
Tim.
and the other thing is that if you compare I always like to go back to the consulting story, like, going
Yes.
back to a Deloitte, to capture everything. There's so much value in what you said, maybe in
Yes.
terms of, it's not a one-track business opportunity. You go to to the communities, to the different sports, and to draft that in a proposal for investors. Like, listen, you go to, the Abu Dhabi or Dubai or to the Saudis. Then you have to be able to to articulate all that stories with all the benefits. And
Yeah.
having a 6AI, and again, going and fetching all the information, the statistics, not only in that community, but comparing it to others in terms of where the trends are going. That's what 6AI is. And again, doing it at a fraction of the cost of what a consulting company like Deloitte or
And
McKinsey
time.
would do it for.
And the time
And it's dynamic in the sense that, again, Perry and Ali are probably tired of hearing me say this, but I think the beauty of this is you have your strategy today, right? Like Perry said, you're sitting with your team and you're using 6AI, and you have a report and results and what you should do. 2 weeks from now, things change, geopolitically or in terms of trend. The subscription, you're using it, it's dynamic. So that changes your report. You pivot maybe a little bit because you have new insight from 6AI, and then it tweaks your overall report or your investment proposal to your. So it's always working in acting versus a consulting company that comes in, works with you for a while. You pay them $300K, $400,000, which is a crazy number. They give you the report, but that report is static. It's for that specific time. Next month, something changes. They're not here to do that. This is basically, once you enter the information, it keeps adding insights as they come in from the overall market, right?
No, in terms of that, the dynamism of it is fantastic because, as you say, everything it can become outdated very quickly. We're living in faster political times now than ever before, and I think that something like this is so sensitive to that that the ability to pivot quickly and say no, and that's it. And I think that the questions that are coming back, so where you're asking that question now, Ali, does this align with the barriers you're seeing? Absolutely, yes, it does. It is I think that my mind was drifting then as Perry was talking because I was thinking of the other applications that this can have in sport, in just in terms of ticketing and pricing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I sit on the Rugby Football League's board of directors at the moment, just on an interim basis, and they're going through. The game is having this. It always, every few years, there's a bit of an existential crisis. So we're having a strategic-led review of the game now. And that strategic-led review, really, it's a sport that's underpriced itself.
Okay.
If you say to people you've underpriced yourself, then really they say, well, can you deliver a pricing analysis across comparable sports, etc., or comparable forms of entertainment? And I think that using this, you can do in a completely different way, and in a much faster way. So I can see. I suppose the business of sport is very technologically aligned, but it's data driven.
Yes.
It's all about data. And even if some of that data is really telling you, a coach from the old school will say, I hold a tube to my, when I want to see how a player performs, I hold a tube to my eye and I follow the movement of that player. And I see them through the duration of the game, and it tells me all the patterns and movements that I need to know. And whereas the data does that now, you have this deep monitoring and tracking. A lot of the time, the data and the stats are simply there to reinforce the visual.
Yeah, but the data also surfaces things that the eye cannot see.
Yeah, it does, and I think and so I think that I can think of multiple uses in sport, but that's an aside. We can come back. I can send you some thinking on that at another stage. But this now is a yes. It aligns with the barriers that I'm seeing, and so really it's now to present the narrative in a way that I suppose that speaks investor language.
Yeah. So why don't you write that? That's very good. So we can obviously do more, but you're seeing how this is working. But I think that's a very good point. Present the narrative. What was the language, Abby? I think that was really good what you said.
Yeah, present the narrative in a way that speaks investor language. Ali is writing that now.
Okay,
and
perfect.
or it speaks to the investor in their language.
Okay.
Because
Because what you're essentially telling the system is that, hey, I agree with what you're saying. Now give me a narrative, right? Or give me the strategic, question of what I have to do. That's sort of step one of the 6AI process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, social impact. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Soft diplomacy.
Mm.
It's pretty good. Sorry, I don't mean to say. I know it's bad, but
No.
I get excited. I get excited about it myself because I'm like, wow, that's what a good consultant should be able to do, but not in record time.
Yeah.
Not in this speed. So would a one pager distilling this into investor language facing strategic value risk mitigation be helpful? I can structure that. Yeah, it would be. It would be extremely helpful. So what this has done, it's been able to distill some fairly loose information actually, because it's been very broad-based discussion. We've been discussing as opposed to me putting down specific questions.
Yeah.
And it has been able to crystallize this very, very quickly.
And you can see what Terry was referring to before, that there
Yeah.
is an agent that's always thinking about risk and risk
Right,
mitigation. And there is also another agent that's always thinking about next steps, as opposed to
Yeah.
just a document that sits on your desk, but it has a bias towards action, if you will.
Yeah.
So what I'll do, if it makes sense, Abby, at least I'll give you these two last outputs, because it's kind of a summary of this conversation you've generated. And this is basically just this agent helping you crystallize these ideas that were floating in your head into these concrete deliverables.
Yeah. This is. I'm not an addictive person at all. The thing that the only thing I've mildly been addicted to in my life is actually YouTube. I think that music, that expression, when you get lost in music, where YouTube can take you musically, is like nothing else that's been before.
Yeah.
This likewise is if you're a person that has ideas,
Yes.
this is like magic communication, but the tool has got to match the aspiration of the individuals.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm probably a bit more plugged into it than I would be normally in my brain, because my son has just finished his dissertation, and so I've been reading through this stuff, and it's just brought me back up to speed slightly. So no, I genuinely think it's fantastic.
And imagine having this tool, Abby, at your disposal 24/7, regardless of where you are traveling or where you happen to be. And at least for me, I use it and I enjoy it just to bounce off ideas before I have a meeting with somebody. Just make sure at least I've got somebody who can check my thinking process and stuff, identify gaps, or even open up my horizons in terms of what other things I should be thinking about.
No, fantastic. I'm converted already, and happy to in terms of, I can see it working in multiple ways, and this will evolve. This was really just a
start.
quick file, and it's super.
And just another quick story I saw the other day. the Golden State Warriors, four-time champion. They were advertising for data strategy person, right? So I said to myself, man, I saved everything and I'm going to contact them, but not ready yet. I said, forget all these hiring all these strategy people. Just use our tool. Like we will replace. I hate to, I'm sorry, but we will replace people. But at the end of the day, what we would present to the organization, we present to the organization incredible value for a fraction of the cost, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day. So again, I want to reemphasize this is AI one, but we'll once we get this out to you, Abby, if there's more things we want to do, I'll facilitate that. No worries. Yeah. But again, what we're discovering here is that AI one is still useful, even though the team said the measuring and monitoring, if a piece of information changes relative to the strategy, the system again is dynamic. It'll say, hey, we gave you the strategy the other day, but something material has changed that might affect the strategy. Here's an alert. Yeah. Right? How do you
and this is how you should pivot.
And this is how you should this is how you should pivot. Versus if you have a consultant, well, first of all, a consultant would know, but you'll see a problem with your strategy, something's not happening, and you call the consultant back again another couple $100,000 later. So I always say the consultants create more problems to solve in order to keep themselves in business. But if you have this tool to yourself and your team, I mean, I'm excited about it, as you can tell, but I'm glad you see or you feel the same way.
Yeah, so this is, and I suppose this is just a general question now, because within the public sector, because you're mentioning consultants here, I know that from my time in Bradford before, every local authority, so city, and regional government employ officers who are well qualified. However, they never take those officers' decisions.
That's exactly right. That's a huge problem.
They will then bring in a Deloitte in the past, or a PwC, a consulting firm, to then present to them. And all they do is they go and speak to the officers, and they take the reports that they've written, and they rebadge them and say it's almost like a charter mark. It's what this does is this really allows that to be done internally.
Yes.
So I think if you had to, it's almost, and I suppose that's where the idea of a 6AI charter mark would be of great value, because then you can sell it to technically government entities, be that local, regional, national. And what you're doing is you're saying, okay, you've already paid to employ these people who have skills and expertise. Now let that challenge be internal.
Yes.
As opposed to, because your facilitator is the program, is 6AI. You don't need, so where you're spending X number of 100,000, you can now bring that down. Really, it's a Doge tool.
Well, we won't use the name Doge, though.
No.
That's Elon Musk, and I want to stay away from that. I'm kidding, but I hear you.
Even here now, everyone is now looking. Every new government comes in and talks about government efficiency.
Yes.
So very, and reducing the size of the civil service.
Yeah.
A lot of the cost is not in actually the size of the civil service; it's the number of consultants you bring in to do it. So it would be, I'm sure you guys are doing it already, but if you can test it within that sort of public sector realm. And I suppose really, it's funny when you look at, everybody talks about AI now, and and different universities are taking different approaches. And you think, but a student who has an idea for a dissertation or any research paper, you then think, okay, for them, this now, it's in a difficult place for the universities to actually look at it, because this software can frame a thesis very, very quickly.
Yes.
And and create the arguments that you require for a thesis. So maybe I'll do a DBA or doctorate of some sort next year. And I think that, and in essence, you say, well, I want to do it in 3 months as opposed to that time, and I want you to.
Yeah.
So, can you condense the process? Are you accelerating learning, or are you, or are you impacting learning negatively? Personally, I think you're accelerating learning because it
Yep.
means that you're getting to the heart of the matter faster.
Yep.
And yeah, it'll be quite interesting to see how
If
it evolves.
I can comment on that, because I wrote an article, a couple articles the other day. This question that you got, Abby. See, guys, I told you he's one of the smartest people I know. You're asking these wonderful questions because what you just said, right? Why we are, you know, an alternative to ChatGPT. The major problem in universities today, you speak to professors, is that people, even in graduate work, are doing stuff with ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is doing the whole thing for them. There's a student in a master's program at Columbia, actually a PhD program at Columbia, got kicked out because the professors couldn't even figure it out, but finally they did. But he's basically writing his dissertation. It was computer science, right?
Mm.
The ChatGPT. People are handing in papers with ChatGPT. Okay, it's going to hurt them in the end, but they're handing in papers. So ChatGPT is writing the paper for them, everything. And the professor is not going to. I was at a conference call yesterday with the professor at McGill in the Datasphere lab, but professors are not going to be running around trying to figure out if things are cheating because there's a whole process that they have to go through and checks. No, professors like, forget it. Students want to cheat, that's their problem. 6AI, on the other hand, doesn't write your paper for you, doesn't do any of those things for you. It's a tool that helps you set up a strategy, okay, to help you go out there and do it. You still have to do the work. But if you can now have a tool that it may take you 2 months or weeks to put together, a strategy of how to start, how you're going to build your dissertation, whatever. If you can do that in a matter of hours and days, it changes the game.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what 6AI does. Right. So
and what the upside is. I mean, the sky is the limit because, again, we're talking about taking away business from consultants, not all of it, but some. But we're also basically looking at the disenfranchised people who want to build strategy, but could have never gone to these people.
absolutely. That is
So the total addressable market is just, and when I started talking to Perry, I remember a few months ago, I mean, I think now it's probably almost a year ago, I was able to find a couple of studies from MIT. And when you look at the potential of the market, I mean, it's a blue ocean market. It's just crazy, because again, you're creating a market that does not exist. So people who want help with strategy and would never go to a consultant because they're like, listen, there's no way I can pay this. When we go to the numbers that Perry's talking about, $30-40 a month, a lot of the small mid-sized companies, that's absolutely a no-brainer because they are paying for Canvas. You're going to pay for this. It's exactly the same,
and
if not more value.
New market in the small and medium-sized business space, because in the small and medium-sized business space, A, they can't afford a consultant, right? And B, they would never engage in strategy. Not that they don't need to, because most small and medium-sized business need to have a strategy to transition to the digital world, right? But A, they can't afford tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars of a consultant, but they need strategy for this. 20, 30, whatever our final price is, $20 a month, $30 a month. I mean,
Because and that's it. You're not bespoke. This is, I suppose, it transcends borders. So
absolutely.
you can deal with a local chamber of commerce here who want to facilitate it for their members, to the Institute of Directors, and so maybe some of these overarching bodies who are part funded by government and part funded by membership scheme.
The way we've architectured our software is so that it can be deployed in what we call a sovereign mode, where, let's say, for example, you're an organization, you're dealing with sensitive data, or your strategies are actually sensitive because they're government strategies, they have geopolitical impact, blah, blah. You could decide, and we can deploy for you this solution on your private cloud, on your premises, right? And of course, it won't be for $30 a month, but we could deliver a sovereign solution for you,
Yep.
where you don't have to worry about your data going anywhere, and you
Yep.
don't have to ever worry about your strategies leaking to the opposition,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So we've already architected the system that way. It's just a matter of finishing all the security aspects and all the security tests.
Yeah.
And then we'll have a deployable version of this that we could deploy either as a cloud-based for the average consumer, or a sovereign version that we could deploy in your secure premises.
Yeah. Gosh, but what it speaks to the authentic nature of who we are and what Ali stands for in terms of what we're building here. We're not building bullshit, right? We're building real things for real people, and we're giving people access to technology that they may not ever have. So we hope we can level, the playing field. So we're excited about this. And Ali, you're gonna give me a printout that I
Yes.
can forward to Abby, and then we'll just go from there.
Yeah, no, guys, thank you very much, and I'm moving forward. If there's anything that I can ever do from here or impacts, just input into it, just let me know.
No
be
problem.
very
We
happy to
appreciate
be
it.
involved in any way. Yeah,
All right, we appreciate it. All right, so we'll talk soon.
we'll do.
Okay, guys.
Nice meeting you, Abby.
Take care.
Nice meeting you,
Nice
Abby.
to meet you. Take care, guys.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye.